This presentation aims to provide evidence-based information about sociopathic personality traits and their manifestations in intimate relationships. Drawing from personal experience with a former spouse who exhibited these characteristics, I hope to offer insight that may help others identify concerning patterns in their own relationships. For those currently in relationships with individuals displaying these traits, please consider seeking professional support. Most sociopaths refuse to seek professional help as you are the person with the problem, not them. Early recognition of these behaviors can prevent years of emotional distress and psychological harm. Throughout this presentation, I will share specific examples from my own experience to illustrate how these behaviors manifest in real-life situations. The following slides will outline key behavioral patterns, manipulation tactics, and warning signs that may indicate sociopathic tendencies in a relationship partner.
The clinical designation for what is commonly referred to as sociopathic behavior is antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. This condition manifests through a pervasive pattern of disregard for others' rights and feelings, often accompanied by manipulation and an absence of empathy. During my military service as a U.S. Army officer, I experienced firsthand how a spouse exhibiting these characteristics can significantly impact one's professional trajectory. The military culture particularly emphasizes spousal support as an integral component of an officer's career advancement, a dimension entirely absent in my marriage. While stationed in Germany, my professional standing was systematically undermined through my spouse's calculated actions. For instance, during a critical battalion organization day where I, as company commander, was expected to receive a visiting general, my spouse deliberately took our only vehicle to the credit union despite prior knowledge of this obligation. This resulted in my conspicuous absence at battalion headquarters while all other officers had departed for the event location. This pattern of professional sabotage repeated itself during subsequent command functions, ultimately culminating in formal disciplinary documentation from my colonel with explicit warnings regarding my command position. These consequences appeared to generate no concern from my spouse. The domestic environment exhibited escalating patterns of aggression. In one particularly troubling incident when our daughter was approximately 3 years old, my spouse brandished a meat cleaver in a threatening manner toward our child before physically assaulting me with the implement and subsequently concealing it. This was immediately followed by my spouse contacting law enforcement with fabricated allegations that I had initiated violence. Such calculated incidents of professional undermining and domestic volatility continued with disturbing regularity throughout our marriage, creating a comprehensive pattern consistent with the clinical presentation of antisocial personality disorder. I found myself entrapped in a relationship marked by persistent financial manipulation, wherein my partner systematically asserted control over my income through a variety of coercive means. Her methods extended well beyond simple economic restriction, permeating many aspects of daily life. Social isolation became another tool of her control. She deliberately engineered barriers to my participation in communal and professional gatherings, thereby diminishing my access to supportive relationships. Opportunities for camaraderie, such as socializing with fellow officers at the club, were routinely obstructed, leaving me increasingly isolated. The psychological climate was further destabilized by explicit threats to my life, often articulated in disturbingly vivid terms. Her threats were not fleeting remarks, but rather detailed descriptions of a slow and deliberate demise, language evocative of autocratic cruelty more than domestic conflict. A recurring feature of her behavior was the invocation of past grievances. She adeptly wielded guilt as a weapon, frequently resurrecting bygone incidents as grounds for current admonishment. This continual re-examination of historical transgressions functioned as a sustained form of psychological domination, reinforcing her broader pattern of control. Warning signs of psychological and financial abuse. Early warning signs to be aware of. Excessive jealousy or possessiveness that's framed as care or protection, moving relationships forward unusually quickly, immediate commitment, fast cohabitation. Subtle criticism that gradually increases in frequency and severity. Jokes that undermine your confidence or question your perception. Monitoring your whereabouts, communications, or spending without clear reason. Dismissing your concerns as overreacting or being too sensitive. Control patterns to look out for. Isolating behaviors. Expressing dislike of your friends, church family, creating conflicts that make visiting difficult, financial monitoring beyond normal couple discussions, demanding receipts, questioning purchases, decision-making that excludes your input on important matters, using emotional outbursts to end discussions that aren't going their way, keeping score of perceived wrongs, or creating impossible standards. These were very noticeable early on in our relationship. Like many of the abused, I always thought something would make things better. I'd like to address a serious but often overlooked form of harm: emotional and psychological abuse in relationships. While this can affect anyone regardless of gender, I'll be focusing on some specific patterns and impacts that research has documented. Emotional abuse leaves no visible scars, yet its effects can be profound and lasting. Clinical research published in the Journal of Family Violence has demonstrated that psychological maltreatment can cause damage comparable to physical abuse, with distinct neurobiological consequences. Studies from the American Psychological Association have documented several key impacts. First, persistent criticism and belittlement erode self-worth. Research shows this isn't merely feeling bad, it actually changes how the brain processes self-evaluation and can lead to clinical depression. Second, living in environments where emotional safety is compromised forces the nervous system into states of hypervigilance. This constant stress response has been linked to anxiety disorders, sleep disruption, and even cardiovascular problems. Third, severe emotional abuse can trigger post-traumatic stress responses. A 2018 study in psychological trauma found that emotional abuse victims often experience intrusive thoughts, emotional flooding, and avoidance behaviors similar to other trauma survivors. Fourth, manipulation techniques like gaslighting, where someone is made to question their own reality, can severely impair cognitive functioning and decision-making abilities. Perhaps most concerning is the gradual isolation that often accompanies these dynamics, cutting individuals off from support systems precisely when they need them most. Recovery is possible. Therapeutic approaches like cognitive processing therapy have shown effectiveness in rebuilding self-trust and processing emotional trauma. Support networks, both professional and personal, play crucial roles in healing. A better way to recover is to leave the abuser. Get a divorce. Sooner the better for you. He or she is not going to change. By understanding these patterns through an evidence-based lens, we can better recognize harmful dynamics, support those affected, and work toward healthier relationship standards for everyone. Thank you for your attention to this important topic. Overview. Some individuals use patterns of manipulation and rule-breaking that systematically undermine a partner's stability, financially, socially, and professionally. These behaviors can create chronic stress, isolation, and career risk for the targeted partner. Key patterns and impacts. Financial sabotage, repeated theft, coerced debt, and reckless spending can jeopardize housing, security clearances, and employment. The partner may be left to manage fallout, legal exposure, and reputational damage that they did not cause. Social erosion, smear campaigns, and public scenes can turn neighbors, friends, and co-workers into bystanders or critics, shrinking the support network precisely when it's most needed. Institutional strain. When misconduct involves commanders, supervisors, or HR, the partner can face formal scrutiny, mandatory meetings, and career consequences, despite having no involvement in the behavior. Chronic humiliation and stress. Being tied to another person's volatile or unlawful actions can produce ongoing embarrassment, hypervigilance, and burnout. Illustrative case example, condensed, de-identified. Repeated shoplifting at on-base exchanges triggered commander involvement and potential reassignment risk for the non-offending partner. Neighbors reported public outbursts and considered filing formal complaints, which would further isolate the partner and threaten their community standing. The partners shouldered meetings, explanations, and reputational repair, while the offending party avoided direct accountability. Why this matters. These behaviors weaponize institutions and social networks, turning them into pressure points on the non-offending partner. The cumulative effect is destabilization, characterized by financial risk, career jeopardy, and loss of community trust. Over time, targets may doubt their judgment, withdraw socially, and accept undue responsibility for someone else's actions. What supports recovery? Documentation. Keep timelines, incident records, and third-party confirmations. This protects employment and clarifies accountability. Boundaries and policies involve appropriate channels, command, HR, legal, early, focusing on conduct and policy, not character labels. Restoring community ties, proactive, factual communication with trusted peers can counter isolation and rebuild credibility. Professional support, counseling or peer support groups can address stress, shame, and hypervigilance caused by chronic instability. Key takeaway: deliberate financial misconduct, public volatility, and reputation attacks don't just create drama, they dismantle the partner's stability and support systems. Recognizing the pattern, documenting impacts, and engaging formal supports are critical steps towards safety, accountability, and recovery. When husbands stay in abusive relationships, it's not weakness. It's the cycle of entrapment. Hope for change, brief periods of kindness, and deep shame keep victims tethered, while fear of retaliation, losing children, or financial collapse raises the stakes. Cognitive dissonance blurs red flags into second chances. Add to this a powerful societal bias. Men are less likely to be believed or recognized as victims, especially when the abuser is female. My experience reflects this painful reality. I stayed, believing it would improve, but the abuse intensified. Friends saw the sociopathic traits, others denied. While statistics often highlight male-perpetrated abuse, exceptions exist, and they are real, devastating, and too often dismissed. Victims deserve validation, protection, and a path out, regardless of gender. Early indicators in a relationship often start as yellow flags that are easy to rationalize away. Excessive flattery that feels like love bombing, lies about both small and big things, and a noticeable lack of empathy for others. But they tend to escalate into clear red flags over time. Chronic blame shifting for her mistakes, sudden swings into rage or chilling coldness, secrecy and control around money, and efforts to isolate you from the people who care about you. In my case, she would explode over the smallest things, and one incident revealed how deep the lack of empathy ran. She called an African-American child in our neighborhood a racial slur, the N-word, leaving me to face the child's kind and reasonable father and even meet with the new base commander because of the fallout. Meanwhile, she avoided any real accountability as usual, highlighting a pattern where the harm she caused landed on others to fix. These behaviors aren't isolated moments. They form an escalating pattern that moves from unsettling to dangerous, and recognizing them early can be the difference between addressing the problem and becoming trapped in it. For husbands facing abuse, a deliberate step-by-step approach can restore clarity, safety, and options. Start by documenting everything: dates, times, descriptions of incidents, screenshots, photos of damage or injuries, and records of finances or threats. Organized, contemporaneous notes carry weight with courts, counselors, and yourself when doubt creeps in. Seek support early, even if quietly. A therapist who understands coercive control and trauma bonding can help you untangle shame and fear, And trusted friends can provide perspective, witness statements, and a safe place to land if you have to leave quickly. Secure your finances to reduce leverage and dependency. Open a separate account, change passwords, freeze or monitor your credit, and discreetly gather copies of tax returns, pay stubs, titles, and insurance policies. A fee. Only financial advisor or certified divorce financial analyst can help you build a budget and plan for transition. Schedule a legal consultation before a crisis. Knowledge is protective. A family law attorney can advise on custody, protective orders, documentation standards, jurisdiction, and how to avoid actions that could be misrepresented against you. They can also help you create a timeline that emphasizes the children's best interests. Above all, prioritize safety with a practical exit plan. Identify a safe place to go, pack a go bag, IDs, meds, keys, cash, charger, copies of documents. Establish code words with allies, vary your routines, and consider technology safety, location sharing, shared plans, home cameras. If physical violence escalates or weapons are present, call emergency services and keep a list of hotlines and local shelters that serve men as well as women. Taking these steps isn't about giving up. It's about protecting your well-being, preserving your relationship with your children, and reclaiming your autonomy. Leaving a relationship with a sociopath is rarely straightforward. Once you speak up or set boundaries, especially after months or years of marriage, the blame often shifts entirely onto you, and any attempt to address the truth can trigger shouting, accusations, or public scenes. I was locked out of my own home, and my ex even barged into my workplace, yelling and accusing me of all kinds of misdeeds until my boss had her removed. The divorce took nearly 3 years to finalize, but persistence mattered. I saw it through. Life moved forward. I eventually remarried a wonderful woman, and we've been together for 33 years. Even now, the ex occasionally resurfaces, insisting I owe her money. People like that rarely let go. My message is urgent and straightforward. Regardless of gender, if you're with a sociopath, prioritize your safety and sanity, and make a plan to leave. Don't bring children into the chaos. It isn't fair to them. Once you're out, put distance between you and the abuser. The farther the better. Healing is possible, a stable life is possible, and you deserve both. Thank you for taking the time to listen and for caring enough to learn.